to share with you guys something that is apparently going viral, but I don't think people actually understand what it is, right? Other than like food scientists or nutrition scientists or people who have degrees, okay? And obviously, I have a degree in sports nutrition and many other qualifications as well. But what I wanted to do was explain to you guys the whole theory about, oh, how do I eat carbohydrates and lose weight, but or how do I eat carbohydrates and tone up but not get fat, or just like all of the questions that you guys have floating around in your head about carbohydrates. Are they the enemy? Should I go keto? Mr. Blah Blah says that they're the devil, and I tried having no carbs for one day and I felt really good and whatever. Like, I'm just going to break it all down for you, the science, the application as to what you should do given your situation and where you want to be. So this will be incredibly valuable for it. I'll use some clients as some examples. So let's get right into it. To begin with, a lot of people instantly think carbs make you fat. Okay, they don't. All right. I have a little quote down there with the brain emoji next to it. Carbs don't get stored as fat. Okay. If someone said that, maybe check their qualifications. Excess calories store fat. Okay. Something my dad says to his patients. My dad is a doctor and he's not a nutritionist or anything, but he often thinks, like, gets patients asking him, like, oh, what, so should I go on this weight loss? Should I go on Ozempic? Or like, what should I do? Should I just stop eating carbs? And he says, no, carbs don't make you fat. It's just eating too much. And I've tried my best to plan this out using the most simple terminology possible. So I hope you can appreciate that. And if you really do appreciate it, drop a like. All right. So what many of us have been told within the fitness industry or just on social media is that we've kind of been taught to fear these carbs, right? And I want to show you and prove to you that you could eat more carbohydrates and eat more of the right carbohydrates, and that could actually help you burn fat and tone up faster. Okay. I know that might sound like bullshit to some of you, and you're like, that sounds so backwards. To some of you, you're probably like, oh, yeah, that could make sense. Some of you are like, yeah, that makes sense. And I'm going to explain to you in detail all of this. So let's get right into it. Eating more, burning fat. The science of this is essentially, well, if you eat more carbohydrates, which are our main source of energy, right, you'll have better fuel for your workouts. Therefore, you can actually train harder, lift more, move more. When you train harder, you burn more calories. But when you lift more and you gain muscle, then you're also burning more calories because you're trying to grow muscle. Your metabolism is optimized. And if you have more energy, you're probably going to move more in general. Now, the other scientific point of this is muscle retention and growth. I kind of just said that, but basically, muscle loves carbohydrates, okay? Muscle needs carbohydrates for energy, for recovery, and growth as well, okay? And lastly, it does fire up your metabolism. When your body feels like it's been fed, it will actually burn more, not less, all right? And that's why when you're in a deficit that's too big, or a deficit for a too long period of a time, or both, that's where you run into plateaus and you're like, what? It was working. Why isn't it working now? Okay. And I'm going to literally show you how we combat this within my own coaching program as well. Okay. So, where should we go? Where should we go? So many options. Let's go here. Yeah, let's explain to you what carb cycling is. I think that's, oh, no. Let's go over here. I knew I had something else. I just forgot. Okay. Perfect. So, what are carbohydrates? Carbs are our main source of, fuel, kind of like gas for a car, right? Essentially, they break down glucose, which is sugar. Now, is sugar evil? Well, there's different types of sugar. There's different types of glucose. Okay, there's also other things that are also considered sugar that isn't glucose, like maltodextrin and blah, 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 blah. All right. Now, glucose, though, the healthy form of glucose, will give you energy to move, to think, and to exercise. The difference is that not all carbohydrates, not all forms of glucose are the same. Now, some are slow and helpful, and others are fast and sneaky. That's my third grade English to explain this diagram. And essentially, high GI, high glycemic index, so these fast and sneaky carbohydrates, that's the red line. And it's giving you this huge spike of energy to move and think and exercise, but then it gives you this huge crash. Whereas slow and helpful carbohydrates, like the low GI, low on the glycemic index scale, the yellow line or the orange, it looks more orange line, right? So the healthier carbohydrates are going to be low GI because they're giving you sustained energy. They won't give you that crash. So these are things like on the left, apples, hummus. Like that's the thing. So people think carbohydrates are bread and pasta and wheat and rice and stuff. Like they are. They're higher in carbohydrates in comparison to like a carrot, right? They're higher in calories in comparison to, I don't know, a strawberry, right? But even nuts, like nuts have carbs in them, nuts have fats in them, nuts have protein, right? And so what I'm trying to emphasize as well is that there's carbohydrates, like when people go keto, right? Keto, but they're eating carrots or they're eating corn or sweet potato. I'm like, that's not keto then because you're still eating carbohydrates. Or they're eating fruit. I'm like, that still has carbohydrates in it. Or they're eating nuts and avocados. Okay, avocados really don't have much carbohydrates in them. But nuts, for example, and they're eating these nuts, and I'm like, well, that still has a percent of carbohydrates. Maybe not as much as rice or bread, but it still has carbohydrates in it. Okay, so anyway, look, long story short, I got on a bit of a tangent there. These are low GI. These are the healthy forms of carbohydrates. High GI are the unhealthy forms. Obvious as day. Lollies, cake, chocolate, ice cream. You get it, right? Okay. So that is that. Now, actually, something to take away here. Like, okay, I want to just explain something very quickly. Bananas. I always have bananas as a pre-workout. Okay. But I have honey on it, and honey is a fast acting form of high GI. It's super sugary, okay? But the combination gives me that high blood sugar spike, like the energy to like train in the beginning and give me that energy that I need to like kind of wake up and put my best effort in. But then I also have that sustained combination of the banana for a like longer extension of energy, right? And sometimes as a pre-workout before you work out, combining both is actually a really good idea. Okay, it depends on the person. Okay, I'm someone who's in a lean bulk. I don't need to lose weight right now or lose fat. Now I'll get into what to do based on your situation and your goals as well. So sorry, I got a bit off track there. I got a little bit passionate about carbohydrates, didn't I? All right, so let's talk about carb cycling, okay? Which is where you eat more carbohydrates, but not just at random, right? So, as I was talking about before, like pre workout, before you work out, you can eat carbs very strategically, usually around workouts, because as I said, they help for your performance, meaning like your training performance, but they also help with recovery. Okay, so more carbs equals more energy for training, which equals more muscle retention, which equals more fat burned. Because if you train harder, you're burning more calories. If that training session was so hard where to the point where it was forced to grow, then you're also burning calories, not just during the training session, but within recovery. And this overall will keep your metabolism high, your hormones happy, especially those hormones that I often hear are out of whack on the Instagram DMs. Oh, my thyroid, blah, blah, blah. I'm cortisol. It's probably just because I'm stressed and whatever. Like, yeah, we have a lot of hormones, but eat carbs and your hormones will thank you. So on Monday, let's just say you're working out. Yes, you're going to have higher carbs in comparison to Tuesday where you're not working out. But on Wednesday, you're going to work out again, so you'll have high carbs. Okay, that's just a very brief example and very generalized. It does depend on you and where you're at and your goals, which I'll get into in a second. Just stay with me. I got to teach you the basics first. So what are the best carb sources for fat loss and energy? Essentially, good carbs are slow digesting, whole food based and nutrient packed. Okay. So even there are some whole foods that are like on the higher glycemic index scale. Like honey is a whole food. It's natural, but it's higher on the glycemic index scale. Okay. And for example, on this diagram back here, we have, like, you might have instantly looked at this and been like, oh, this is unhealthy and this is healthy. Like, actually, watermelon is quite healthy for you, right? But it is a form of higher glycemic index scale. It's like a high GI, high fructose. It's going to spike your blood sugar levels quite quickly, right? Which is also great for pre-workout, similar to pineapple, similar to rock melon, right? And that's why I have a combination of, like, honey could be on this diagram too. That's why I have a combination of both, right? And so, long story short, if it's whole food based, it's better. Like, let's just say you like high GI foods, or you have like low blood sugar and you suffer with low blood sugar, but you want to eat clean. Well, then having these high GI whole food forms of carbohydrates isn't a bad thing. Again, it really depends on the person, and I'll get into it in a second. But I hope that makes sense. If you guys have any questions, leave it in the comments below and I'll get back to you when I can. But I will get back to you, I promise. So here's a bit of a diagram. We want slow digesting majority of the time. Again, this is generalized, but I assume that you want to lose weight and feel good and get healthy and get fit. So majority of the time you want slow digesting, whole, nutrient-packed carbohydrates, okay? So we're talking whole grains, oats, brown rice, quinoa, fiber, low release of energy as well. When I have a bowl of oats, I feel like I have energy for 4 or 5 hours. Starchy vegetables, potatoes, sweet potatoes, squash. Squash is really good for weight loss. Anyway, great pre and post workout. Fruits, berries, apples, bananas, vitamins, quick fuel, right? Legumes such as lentils, chickpeas, or beans, or black beans, whatever. Fiber and very high in protein as well. See, this is the overlap. It's not as simple as you think it is. Hey, and veggies, carrots, beans, and corn. Now, corn's also kind of carbohydrate dense, and so are beetroots, and so are carrots. Oh my gosh, what? I'm so confused now. That's because it's not as simple as you think. All right. Anyway, look, long story short, all of these are forms of carbohydrates. They're slow digesting, whole food, nutrient packed. Okay. And when we have, obviously vegetables are a lot lower calorie. When we have more nutrient dense foods, of course, you also feel better, but that's a whole different topic. Now, let's talk about what to avoid. At the end of the day, ultra processed carbohydrates. I'm not talking about, watermelon. I'm not talking about honey. I'm not talking about the whole food forms that are high GI. I'm talking about ultra processed carbohydrates. Okay. White bread, pastries, sugary drinks, right? They spike your blood sugar and you will crash very quickly. And they're also just not good for you, right? I'm not saying you have to cut them out completely. But that is also the truth as to if you wanted to optimize your whole entire life, health, and body, and you didn't struggle with your relationship with food, and you could live on an island in Hawaii and just eat whole foods 24/7, then yeah, avoid it. But chances are you live in a certain society with certain lifestyle means, okay? So you want to keep that in the back of your mind. But I'm just teaching you the science and telling you the truth nonetheless. Why low carb diets can backfire. I do want to really make a point of this. You can't sculpt a body on fumes. You can't sculpt a body on fumes. Okay? What I mean by this is you're going to run into a lot of metabolic and hormonal issues if you have a very, very low carb diet, even if you're trying to lose weight. Yes, carbs are higher in calories majority of the time. But again, we have that idea of, yeah, but if they're whole food forms and they keep you full and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, what a mess. This is so confusing. Long story short, just carbohydrates in general, if you just go low carb, you're going to slow down your metabolism eventually. It might help in the beginning to lose some weight, but eventually it's going to slow down your metabolism. You're going to get very tired, very fatigued, and very hungry. You're going to have a loss of muscle. So that leads to that like skinny fat look, which is why I'm not the biggest fan of. There's some coaches out there that are like, you can eat whatever you want and lose weight with the way I coach, right? I kind of have I'm kind of like the middle woman where I'm like, you can't eat everything and all of those unhealthy foods every single day for every single meal and snack if you want to join me, because you're just not going to feel good. You're also going to run into all of these hormonal issues and stuff like that. And I care about your internal state of health as well. But I'm also not the person that's like, oh, you have to eat super whole food and like, just super clean and healthy. I'm kind of like the middle woman who helps you create that healthy relationship with food, with healthy foods and unhealthy foods, right? Because of these of factors like this, right? But then we also have the societal and lifestyle factor to consider. And I'm in a kind of like the healthy balance idea, right? In that world, that's the world I live in. Anyway, so if you go low carb, slower metabolism, muscle loss, which will lead to that skinny fat look, which I, of course, want to avoid. 99% of you want to look fit. If you could lose the weight, you'd want to look fit, right? Not skinny fat. And that just increases your longevity and you'll feel better as well. More hunger, cravings, and fatigue eventually, and very, very poor recovery, which equals less strength, which equals less fat burned, which means it's kind of not even worth it lifting weights in the first place. Okay, so that's that. Now, you might be wondering how I use this in my coaching. I have multiple examples based on where the person is and where they want to go. I always tailor the programs to what the client wants and what their goals are. So I want you to keep that in mind. And I'm going to use some examples. All right. So, first of all, this is a current client of mine, Jess. So she hasn't finished her time with me, but she's so far lost 29.4 pounds. Essentially, we use strategic carb timing, especially around the workouts. So there's no starvation. You eat real meals, okay, that you actually like and that you or enjoy. And some of those meals are going to be meals that you already eat anyway. You train hard, you will recover faster, and you'll just look leaner, right? So we also personalize your macros based on your age and your body goals. And usually these people don't just want to lose weight; they want to look athletic and fit and just be at the most optimal level of health they could possibly be, right? Which is great. Now with Jess, for example, she, her primary goal is to just lose the weight, but she also wants to build strength. And she's in phase 2. If you haven't watched my full program breakdown video, I'll link it at the end. But long story short, she's in phase 2. If you don't know what that is, go watch the video. And she started working out in the gym now. And so now that she's working out in the gym, we really want to be mindful that she's getting something out of those gym sessions rather than just putting herself into this metabolic issue place where she's overworking and getting tired and just dropping her energy stores because she was in a deficit. And basically, look, long story short, this is how you can eat more and lose weight. So what we did was, as soon as we noticed she plateaued for like a couple of days. And as soon as I noticed that plateau, we adapted her nutrition slightly to avoid any further plateau, right? Because if you're in a deficit, at some point you will run into a plateau if your food isn't adapted. Also, she started training at the gym, so there are a lot of different factors to consider. So basically, we adapted it, which meant her calories were increased, her carbohydrates were increased. She ate more calories and she ate more carbohydrates and lost more weight. Okay. And you can see the message for yourself. You can read the words for yourself. I mean this with the most affection as possible, but fuck you and this rest shit. So look at my new lowest weigh-in. All I can do is laugh. Ha ha ha. It's so backwards. That made me laugh too. So mind blown. Apparently my body was waiting for it. So we increased her calories, we increased her carbohydrates, and we also made her do less steps and less cardio. So she was technically doing the opposite of a deficit. She was doing the opposite of what helped her lose the first 20 pounds. And that's the thing. What's going to help you lose the first 20 or 30 pounds is not the same thing that's going to help you lose the next 20 or 30 pounds, which is why you need someone to adapt things as you go, as your goals change, and as your body adapts so that you don't run into a plateau. And she was mind blown. And I said, cheers to trusting the process, right? So anyway, that's her. You can see the physical difference too quite dramatically. And that's only 30 pounds. So I'm pretty excited to see where that goes. Now, let's go here. So some of you might have other goals that aren't. So hers is fat loss and just overall strength, right? They're her goals. I also run into people who want to tone up. I also run into people who just want to gain muscle. So I'm going to talk about those two scenarios. So this is a current client of mine. Again, he hasn't finished his time with me. So keep that in mind. We're not at the end yet. But basically, Eric, he wanted to tone up, and once he was lean, basically gain as much muscle as he could without getting any extra fat. Okay. So what we did with him was moderate carbs to support his energy without fat gain. So we kept him training because he's trained his whole life. I didn't want to make him stop training to lose weight. So we made sure he was still eating the right amount of carbohydrates and protein and fats. And he was still training. And you can see from here to here, he's lost a considerable amount of fat, right? This is about a 13-pound difference from memory. We also did this to make sure we retained the lean muscle that he had built, right? And yeah, this is best paired with strength training and a moderate calorie deficit. And that's basically what we did, but being mindful of still eating carbohydrates. And he's also a type 1 diabetic, so we had to be very mindful of his carbohydrates. So that's that. And then, yeah, this is where he is at today. So basically, we were very happy with how lean he was. We didn't want him to lose any more weight, because if he lost any more weight, then he'd be losing muscle. And this is literally 1 week later. Like, this is a 7-day difference from here to here. Okay. And you can see a dramatic difference. It's like his muscles have just expanded, they've just popped out of nowhere. But there's no extra fat on him. Okay. So this guy versus this guy actually looks a lot leaner, but pretty much the same size, very similar, right? And now we're just focusing on lean muscle gain, right? Now, speaking of purely only wanting to build muscle, and you don't want to lose fat, right? Some of you follow me because you've seen my transformation. Mine was a muscle gain, getting over injuries journey. All right. And the reason I can specialize in weight loss is because I'm qualified to do so, and I've helped hundreds and hundreds of people do it. Now, sometimes I run into the client or prospect who's like, I just saw your photo. I want to look like you. I want to whatever. And I'm like, yep, sure. No worries. So that's basically, Sky had a very similar story to me. She had a foot surgery, so I had ankle surgery, but she had a foot surgery because someone broke her foot, and she lost a lot of muscle. She liked playing football and couldn't play it, so she's also an athlete actually. And essentially, she came to me, not feeling super confident, really wanting to get back to footy as well. So we had to rehabilitate her entire foot, and like that was a lengthy process. But she also wanted to gain muscle, right? And she didn't need to lose any fat or any weight. I just knew, okay, if we put more muscle on this physique, she'll look leaner actually, and she'll just look better and feel healthier. And you can see it in her face, right? She has some bruises from playing footy. But anyway, a bit of an aggressive sport, that one. So basically, we did higher carbs, especially around her workouts, especially when she was able to work out more. So it really went, let's rehab everything first. And then once everything was fully rehabilitated, okay, now we're going to start working out, but working out harder and putting more load and force. So let's increase your carbohydrates. So we combined the high carb with progressive strength training. And we avoided fat gain by basically syncing the carbohydrates around her training and around her recovery as well. And so that's how you can gain muscle without gaining fat, right? Like you can see huge difference. You can see shoulders, triceps. You can see because of the lighting, it's not the best lighting in this one. It looks like there's a shadow there, but you can even see like the shaping and the sculpting of her glutes here. And this is just muscle gain. This isn't fat, because if it was fat, it'd be, as women we know. So yeah, you get it. That's the point. So that's how we do toning versus lean muscle gain versus fat loss and strength, right? So with reference to carbohydrates. I think that's everything I have to run over today. Again, key message is carbs don't get stored as fat, excess calories do, okay, where you just eat too much, okay? And if you want to feel internally the best you can, well, then just eat whole food forms of carbohydrates. Okay. It's okay if it's watermelon. It's okay if it's rock melon, because rock melon and watermelon is actually really low in calories anyway, right? So strawberries, but having a healthy combination of just healthy whole foods alongside the foods that you do enjoy, the meals that you do enjoy, the meals you already eat. If you have takeout regularly, you can still combine that, right? It's about finding that healthy balance, creating a healthy relationship with all of it, and not fearing carbohydrates, not fearing fats, not fearing protein. So I hope you found this valuable. If you did, drop a like below. If you have any questions about carbohydrates, drop them in the comments below. And if you haven't followed the YouTube channel, then definitely do so and subscribe, because obviously I don't make any money off these videos. This is my time for free, but I hope it helped you out, and I will see you in the next one.